What up? It's your boy Pastor Caleb. Welcome to the Shut Up Devil podcast. We're happy to have you. And of course, I got my boy Kavon, aka Amazin Grace, aka self-proclaimed King of the Sea Church Court, aka the man that thinks Kobe Bryant is the GOAT.
Goat man,
aka the man scared of dogs.
I don't like dogs. It's a difference.
What up, Kavon? We're happy to have you.
Yes, sir, bro. It's a
again,
pleasure.
as usual. And then we got back for round two, my man AJ Officer Hops, aka the Meter Maid.
So that's
is
just gonna
back
be my
in
name.
the building.
That's gonna be my name.
Back in the building, and we have a special guest.
Absolutely.
That I'm super excited about. I got my little sister Lydia here, back from ministry school.
That's me.
I don't have any AKAs for her.
Your
AKA
favorite
the second
sibling?
best athlete in the family, I guess.
I'm the first best.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, listen, hold on now. Y'all got a whole plethora of athletes now. Because you got you, Caleb.
Yeah, number one.
You got Lydia.
You hear that?
But you still got Womble. Womble wasn't no slouch on the basketball court. And your dad was a shooter too now.
I mean, technically, he played at the highest level.
Facts.
But I told him it was the old days, man. It didn't have to be as good.
Hey, they got a plethora of talent in their family.
Yeah.
He had his season though.
I'm excited to have all you guys in here. You know, really enjoying where the podcast is going, and episode 4 already.
Yes.
Week 4. It's crazy to think about. Today we just want to talk about chasing your dreams, talking about never giving up, and really more of an encouraging podcast. Because teenagers, man, you can get some heartbreaks and some letdowns, and you can let that affect your whole life, or you can continue fighting. And I don't know. Does anybody want to share any dreams they had? Maybe they came to pass. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I know me growing up, I wanted to be in the NFL. That was like my dream. Like, I'm going to the NFL.
Right.
God's going to use me through that. And, I'm not in the NFL. I'm here sitting in Savannah on the podcast. But,
You still, like, sometimes do you still have that desire to be in the NFL?
No, I have the desire to play football.
Yeah, that's, because a lot of people,
I just want to hit somebody sometimes.
A lot of times when people have a certain dream, like when they're not doing that and they're doing something else, they still have that itch,
Yeah, I mean,
You still have that
I don't
itch.
have the itch to play in the NFL. I have the...
Or just to play football.
Like when I'm coaching football,
You want to get out
I
there.
want to get out there.
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing like Friday Night Lights in high school.
Absolutely.
Just the atmosphere, the fans, the feelings you get, and I miss the brotherhood and the competitiveness.
Well, see, I'm like that with basketball. Like when I was coming up, I always wanted to play basketball. Well, you know that.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to play basketball. I've always wanted to play basketball. So anytime I'm like at a basketball game, I'm tuned in. Like I'm locked in. I'm watching. I'm really tuned in. And a part of me is like, I want to go play.
Yeah.
Like right now.
For sure.
So what about y'all?
Especially when you're arguing with a student last week about how you would beat him one-on-one.
Listen, I was in his head. I was in his head. And you see, when I play basketball, I'm getting on your nerves. I'm talking trash.
That's what you do when you're athletically outmatched. You just got to play a different way.
You're right.
And now that we're older, we don't move the way we used to move.
Yeah, that's very true too. Because we don't work out the same. Your bones ain't moving the same. Listen, I worked overnight a couple nights this week, and I woke up this morning. It was like, what have I been doing all week? Like, you would have swear I've been working out because my body's sore, my back was hurting. I'm just like, what is going on with my body? So,
and you like 4 years younger than me?
How old are you? You ain't got to say that on that.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Listen, we're getting seasoned. Okay,
So,
we're seasoned.
I'm seasoned. I'll say that. I will say that. So I just kind of want to piggyback on what Pastor Caleb was saying, and how he desired to be in the NFL, or he desired to play football. However, instead of him playing, he's now coaching football.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I got to play college ball and stuff. Is just being 6 foot 6'1", it's hard to make it to the NFL as an offensive lineman when everybody else is 6'5", 6'8".
Yeah.
Because all he eats steaks. That's what. All he eats steaks. And
I mean, I don't have it.
Steaks and roadkill. That's all he eat.
Good.
That's all he eat. That's how the boy's so big. Steaks and roadkill. Whatever they find on the street, they cook it, fry it up. Grew up
Not
that way.
good. Not good. Not good at all.
What was your dream, man?
So when I was in high school, I've always actually had a dream to be in law enforcement.
Okay.
And I remember being
The only one that's achieved his dream. In here.
20,
I'm in the process
21.
of achieving my dream.
Oh yeah, I'm just messing.
working. She's working towards it.
Simmer down.
When I reached about 21 was my desire. I wanted to start at 21 because, of course, at 21 you can actually legally carry a gun in South Carolina. So 21 came. I applied to just about everywhere I could apply to. Nobody would actually hire me. So I got close to 21. I'm at 24, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So still applying. Nobody would pick me up. So finally, I'm like 25, and I was actually just praying and, just asking the Lord if this is something that he wanted me to do. And right before I actually got in, he answered my prayer. And through several people, he said to me that this is something that you will do, but it will only be for a season. And it's interesting because now I'm at that 10-year mark. And it almost seems as if it's like he's calling me into a different season of life, with law enforcement. So I look back over that, over the years, and I'm like, man, that is a blessing to be, in this position.
So my question, when you were 21, were you praying about the job? Like, were you actually seeking God about the job?
I was.
So did anything change?
I was.
Did your prayer change, or?
I can't say that my prayer changed, but my desire was
just kept increasing.
Yeah, it really kept increasing. So I think
it really sounded like it was God's timing.
Right. So right at the time that he desired. Because even in between that time, I've actually been pretty much every job that I've had since the time that I was 21 up until that time. I was in like either assistant manager or a management position. And even that to me was actually a blessing to even be in those positions at a young age. But yeah, it was just consistently praying because even right before I got the job, I was actually getting ready to move to Palm Coast, Florida. And I was actually going to apply to their sheriff department there. And I remember at the time, I was like, whichever one comes first would be the one that God is actually leading me to. Yeah. So that's when I actually got the first position over in Hardyville. So I was like, okay, well, I'll be here for a little bit.
That's one of the hardest things is being patient for God's timing.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
We're such a microwave generation. Like we want we want it now. Like I want it my way and I want it now.
Right. And I'm definitely that way. Like especially if I get a word. Like if I want it like right now.
Oh, yeah, that's how I am about my dreams.
You know what I'm saying? For real, I want it yesterday. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is.
I'm already trying to set up my whole office for the podcast and
hey, man,
I want to video it and stuff like that. And in reality, it's probably like a year out from now. But
what about you, Lydia? What was Lydia's dream growing up?
As far as I can remember, it was missions. After the first time I've been on a mission trip, I fell in love with it. And I've been on 4 now. And now I'm in school to actually taking a mini goal into my process of reaching my final goal, which is missions, be a missionary. And so I'm in school, I'm getting the training, working for it, studying for it.
That's dope.
You're at Christ for Nations.
That's dope.
In
Dallas, Texas.
And why are you wearing a mask?
It's on my face.
Just a habit now?
It's there.
Oh.
It's a fashion statement now.
Yeah.
I don't ever rock one.
The only time I do is if I'm in a store that requires it. But
hey, if you ugly now's the time. Not gonna lie.
Leave it to him.
Yeah, we it's natural for us to have dreams and to want to do stuff in life. Everybody has different passions and different dreams, and you ask one person, it could be this sport. The other person could be a different sport. It could be a famous artist, or there's all different stuff. But I know one of the biggest things is learning how to develop a mindset that will help you chase your dreams. It's so easy to have a dream and then just have a dream.
True.
You know what I'm saying? We don't. You don't ever chase it. Sometimes people don't want to chase it or have. But everyone has the ability to dream. Right. We all have that, but not everyone has the willingness to truly chase their dreams.
I think a lot of times, especially with this generation, for what I see, they have these big dreams, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
but in the same sense, they don't want to put the work in to achieve that dream. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And a lot of times, like, you have some that they put the work in, but they're so easily discouraged.
Yeah.
As in, I've been doing this, I've been following this step. Why hasn't it happened yet? So it's like some are being discouraged, and then you got some who just don't want to put the work in.
I mean, that's where people start doubting God. Which is like the worst thing you can do when you're believing God for a dream. Like, don't start doubting Him.
Well, in the same sense, I mean, you still keep your faith. You still keep your faith in God, and understand that it's on His timing.
Yeah, that's the hardest part.
Trust me, that's the hardest part. And like I said, nobody having patience anymore either. Piggybacking on the microwave generation, they want it right now.
I think a lot of times is that a lot of dreams that we have are like not like a missionary or in the ministry. Sometimes they're like NFL player or whatnot. So a lot of times people forget to add God into their process of walking with God.
Absolutely.
They forget to add Him into like that process of achieving that goal. So then that's why it's not working. That's why there's doubt and everything like that, because they don't include Him in it because it's not a ministry dream. So like obviously, why would you include God? They think, but I think the biggest part is they forget to include Him in that process.
They don't include Him, but get mad at Him when your dream doesn't come to fruition.
Well, not everybody's called to ministry.
It's not.
I mean, it's a calling, but everybody's called to somewhere where they're supposed to minister. To people.
Right.
Like, I mean, we had to have nurses. We had to have police officers. We had to have people managing groceries. Like, all this stuff. We have to have those people. And so everybody's called to different places, but a lot of people forget that, like, okay, I'm called to do this, maybe I'm called to be a manager. Well, how am I supposed to enter, how is God going to use me in this? Is what you kind of have to have that mindset, like, man, wake up in the morning and say, God, use me today at work.
Right.
And that's kind of like what I talked about at Target about praying for people and stuff.
Right.
Like, you have to wake up, like, I'm moving boxes. How am I supposed to minister to people? Well, God can use you, but you have to be willing.
Yeah.
And so, like, when people aren't living their dreams, they often have a limited belief system. Like, they believe that their current circumstances and or their surroundings are keeping them from achieving the things they want to do in life. And it's kind of like what we talked about last week with choices. Like, we can't blame our circumstances. Right. Of course, it's a hindrance. Of course, it could be a setback, but it's not what's going to stop you from achieving your dream. Unless you let it. Like, we all have unique sets of circumstances in our lives that we can use as excuses.
Right.
But learning to find those workarounds in our life, like, how am I going to get over this obstacle?
Right.
I don't have a father in my life, so how am I going to fill that void? It's by getting with my Heavenly Father, like we talked about, and it's by finding a mentor. Find a mentor.
Right.
Let your pastor or your youth pastor or a youth leader be a mentor to you to get over those circumstances, because when we do that, it gives us the ability to achieve it. Right. You know what I mean?
And also, I think, again, it takes us back to what we were talking about again on the last podcast, to where it's all about the company you keep.
Yeah.
So if the people that you have in your company aren't dreaming big, then you need to find another set of friends.
And you start implementing changes in your life.
Right. And
you have to.
Surround yourself. And all that, you need to surround yourself with people you can trust.
Exactly.
And encouraging people that encourage you and don't downgrade your dream and tell you.
Because that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the enemy will send people in your life to crush your dreams.
And
Absolutely.
With your dream, you don't have to tell everybody what your dream is.
No.
That's huge.
You don't have to tell everybody
Sometimes
what your dreams are.
You don't need to tell people, because people will purposely crush your dream.
A lot of people who you think is really down for you.
Yeah, they'll speak against
sometimes they don't really be down for you, especially when they see you making headway towards that dream and they're not making headway towards theirs. That's when you really see who's really for you.
Yeah.
That's who you really see is for you when you start to progress a little more than they are.
That's true. Like, there's all those sayings like you're too young, you're too old, you don't have enough money, you're too stupid, you're too, that you have all these excuses that people say to you. Like, people hear these on a daily basis.
Right.
Like, we did that sticks and stones things. You remember that when we did the different? Well, we had them write on the sticks. What they did was they wrote names that they've been called, like at school or something, or by their parents maybe, and they would write that down. because you know the saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words,
right.
that's a lie, because words do hurt. and so what they did is they wrote down, which is probably what you need to do if you're listening, man. Write down the stuff that people are saying to you. Write it down and crumple it up and throw it away, because that's not who you are.
That's right. Right.
And then what we did is we had the rocks, and it had sayings like you're beautiful, you're wonderfully made, you're created in God's image, you're more than the normal sayings. But it's so important to confess that over your life, because it motivates you.
That's right.
It's a motivator, whether you believe it or not. Like, you saying it motivates you, and it does something in your spirit.
And when you can get to a place in life where you know who you are and not allow other people to tell you who you are.
There you go.
You know, I come across things a lot when I'm on patrol, and like you find people are in like physical fights because somebody said something about them. And I'm like, is that who you are? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, why would you allow somebody to have that type of authority over the way you respond to them because of what they say to you? Sure. If you respond to them, then that means you can identify with what they said that you are. But if that's not who you are, then why are you responding to it? Sure. You know, so that's very important.
The fact that he said it.
Yeah.
Insecurities.
Very
much so. Insecurities.
Yeah.
Insecurities, and it touched him. It touched him. You know what I mean? Talking about
a lot of times it might be true.
That's what I'm saying. You can agree with it.
And
if you respond to it, that means you agree with it.
Yeah.
There you go.
You very much agree with it.
And talking about the sticks and stones, you know, and even what you just said about, you know, how giving somebody authority over you. A lot of times when, like, I would say kids who serve God, you got to be careful with who you're sharing it with who's not serving God. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because, okay, let's say...
You should be sharing it with them.
Huh?
I don't think you should be sharing it with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I think sometimes they share it with so many people, and sometimes those people, a good bit of the times, they're not serving God, so they're not going to understand. They're going to think you crazy.
I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. But in the same sense, a lot of times the world has done a good job of telling people who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Telling people
Let me
who
tell
they
you
are.
who you are, Kavon.
Right.
Yeah.
They have done a good job of telling
who
people
you're supposed to be.
Right. But in the same sense, are you getting into the word to see who God says you are?
That's important.
If you're a child of God, you should be looking at who He says you are, not what your friend on the basketball team is saying. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Right, like, who does He say you are? The world has a good job of telling you who you are, but what does God say you are?
Stop putting your dreams on social media.
Please stop doing that. And all of that, just work. Just work. If you're chasing after something, just work. Do what you're supposed to do. Make sure you're spending time with God. Make sure you're praying. Make sure you're getting into the Word. You know what I mean? Make sure He's in the center.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like one of the hardest things that I noticed, like with like dreams and visions I have for the youth group and for the podcast, one of the biggest things, or one of the hardest things, is you see all these people that are already successful.
Yeah.
And you forget that you might not achieve your dream the same way they did.
Yeah.
You might not get there the same way they did.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
It's not. That's what I'm saying, though. But like, it's hard to we don't think about that sometimes. You're like, okay, well, how do you do this? I'm gonna copy them exactly.
Right.
Or this and that, instead of saying, hey, man, God, I'm trust you. Whatever you have planned for me, whatever you have planned for this youth group, I'm gonna trust you 100%. And that's one of the hardest things to do as a believer, because it could be so frustrating, man. When we see you got say you got 100 kids on your roster, well, only 40 of them are showing up for youth. You get frustrated.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out, like, what the heck? What am I doing wrong? Or this?
Yeah.
When in reality, man, all you need to do is pray and seek God and trust Him in the whole process. Man.
Bro, how you think I feel when I'm planning a concert and I'm expecting a lot of people to be showing up? I'm thinking, oh boy, we're going to turn up, we're going to have some fun, and you only have maybe about 40, 50 people in attendance. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's tough, man.
It really is, because you think it start to get in your mind that, okay, am I that good?
No.
Do people don't? It start to get in your mind of, am I that good, or you know, do they just not care, or you know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff start to run through your mind, you know. But when you got to shake a lot of that stuff off, you know, because that's not what the devil trying to just discourage.
Yeah, because you got to think about it, man. Okay, say there's 40 people there. Well, maybe there's one person there
Absolutely.
that God has something specifically for them.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't change if there was 100 people there, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And that's how you got to look at it, and everything you do, man. Like I was telling some of the kids, like, it's your job to invite kids to church. It's your job to try to lead them to Christ. And if they reject it, that's not on you.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not. You're being obedient to God. You're doing what you're supposed to do. That invitation, we talked about it. You're putting a rock in their shoe.
That's right.
It's a seed planted in them, and so don't get discouraged. No. If you're listening, don't get discouraged. If you're inviting people to church and nobody ever comes, or you're trying to talk about Jesus and they're rejecting them or bashing you, don't get discouraged because you're doing the right thing, and God will honor you and bless you for that.
Yeah, I mean, even now, I still have dreams from 10 years ago that I'm still waiting on to come to pass. And just like seeing time pass.
They already invented Rogaine, bro.
Well, you know what? they've invented a whole lot more than Rogaine, which is a lot more easier.
Go to the beauty shop down the street.
Hey, Jay, don't let me see you in a wig, man.
You look good. You look good, ball man.
Don't let me see you.
So
I couldn't imagine you with hair.
Back to what I was saying. You know,
sorry.
they love these jokes over here, Lydia. So no, I mean, even
don't cry, man.
10 years ago, and now I'm just like, okay, Lord, I mean, is this even possible? Like, am I really going to even achieve this? Because now looking at current situations and things, it's like you don't really see the way. And I think a lot of times I can kind of get a little discouraged because I'm looking to see what God is doing. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to see the steps that God is making to actually have this.
You want to know the process of how you're going to get there.
Like, okay, Lord, like I need to see this, but then I'm having to like remind myself. It's like, even though you can't see what God is doing, just.
Well, I think if He revealed the plans to you, like the steps, you wouldn't trust Him. You would trust the process more than.
Or you would try to do it. Or you try to do it on your own.
Well,
I think which would be not trusting Him because you think I can do
just
it.
looking at the steps again, it could be a lot bigger than you could possibly even imagine it.
Oh yeah, it could be.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like,
how in the world
there's no way that's going to even happen. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I definitely trust Him. A lot of times, again, like I said, I think just meditating on how He's going to do it just kind of puts you in a place of like being not so much discouraged, but like you're like, man, I don't even know if this is possible.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, it's like, okay, Lord, I'm gonna trust you regardless of what it is. I believe it.
It's true. Like, I agree 100%. You know, dreams are just dreams until you decide to do something about them.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Until you decide to achieve them, and hey, God, I'm gonna go after this 100%.
Right.
But I mean, at the same time, like I teach our kids that there's nothing wrong with dreaming. There's nothing wrong with having big dreams.
There's nothing.
But at the same time, you need to be willing to change to what God has for you. Because you'll never be truly happy until you're doing what God's plan and purpose for your life is to be.
That's right.
And I think a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this, a lot of times our dreams are too money driven. And what I mean by that is we're looking at the money we're going to have once we achieve the dream that we have been dreaming about. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's say, for instance, Caleb, you know, wanting to be in the NFL. If that's me, I'm thinking about, boy, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be balling.
No, man. O-line gets paid the least, bro.
True, but in the same sense.
You think of the fame that's going to bring.
Basically. You're thinking about, like, oh, I'm going to be balling. I'm going to be, man, you know what I'm saying?
You associate
I'm not
that
gonna
with
have to worry.
Success and happiness.
Right, and you're not going to have to worry about money. You're going to have, you know what I mean? You're going to want to do this. You're going to do that. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's, a lot of times that
buy my mama a house.
Right, it's like, they think about the bag.
Common, right?
It's the first thing that happens every time.
They're thinking about the bag that comes with it.
Yeah.
And they skip the steps. And again, piggybacking on what Lydia said, they don't have God in the midst of those plans. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know, even though my dreams are big, I never really was concerned about my name being in lights. Like, I could care less about my name being like big or even having
it's because
the money.
The lights would reflect off your head.
It would. But then a lot of people need it.
No, I mean, but not everybody's like that. Like,
you know, I just don't care for my name to be in lights. I think my influence on my dreams is to really impact people, because people are hurting in ways that we could never even imagine.
That's still the goal.
But that's just my number
that's
one
your passion, though.
Yeah, that's just my passion. I don't really care, you know, about the money.
Like one of the coolest things for me growing up was going to the Carolina games and wearing my dad's old Gator Bowl jersey from 1984 when I was little.
Really? We talking? Your dad is like,
yeah, but you gotta think about NFL, man. Them jerseys are small because they want where you can't grab them. They're skin tight. It's like an Under Armour shirt over the pads. And so I would wear them. It was cool. 'Cause
on the shirt.
we'd be walking, and people like, Womble, you're too young to know who Womble is. And then it'd be like old timers who've had season tickets since the 80s.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I want that for my kid, like to walk around with my jersey.
And that's amazing, though, that people would actually say that about your father.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
That's
as
amazing.
a diehard fan, I know who my dad was.
Clearly. That's amazing.
But I mean, yeah, not everybody's out for fortune and fame, but you know, everybody's out for. I mean, everybody wants to live comfortably. You know what I mean?
You want to live? Don't get me wrong. I do. You know, I do music. Yes, I want to be comfortable in what I'm doing. I don't want to be a croaker. There's nothing wrong with that, but I won't worship that either.
Yeah, that's
you know what I'm saying. I won't worship money either.
You know, everybody says money's the root of all evil. I said, man, you need to read the scripture. It says the love of money, which is
the love of money. It's nothing wrong with you having no money, man. It's what you're doing with that money, and are you worshiping that money?
Well, a lot of people think Christians are supposed to be poor, and I'm like, well, how's
that is the dumbest
how's
thing.
the gospel going to get out? Because it takes money to send people places. It takes money to fly. It takes money to buy shoes or whatever you're giving out.
That's right.
I'm telling you this right now.
There's got to be Christians with money so we can spread the kingdom.
To further the kingdom, yeah.
And you think about the world, like all the richest people are controlling everything. They're controlling social media. They're controlling the news and everything. So they're going to push worldly things. Well, why can't we have a bunch of Christians with pushing their money into places where we have Christian news and we have... That's why we got the Victory Network news channel now and stuff like that, and pushing Christian agendas because that's what we were founded on.
I'm sorry, I don't want no broke pastor. I don't want no broke.
But that's true though, because you can't tell me how to prosper.
How you gonna tell me how to prosper if you ain't? You know, bro,
you can't teach me nothing.
Come on, man. Let's be real. You don't know that. The notion that pastors can't have money is the craziest thing to me. I want to see my pastor prosper, and that way I know what she's teaching is legit. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want no broke pastor. I'm sorry. That is what it is. Me seeing Pastor Datha and Pastor Lisa fly.
You got some money for me?
It ain't past appreciation money no more.
Hey, you missed that.
Hey, you'll quickly realize youth pastors are at the bottom of the totem.
You know what I'm saying? But that's what it is.
Honor my pastors.
I want to see my pastor prospering. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
So we talked about, the whole perfect timing is a myth.
Yeah.
So, like, you always want to say, well, when I'm 24 or whatever, this will be the perfect time for me to have this and me to have that. But in reality, there is no such thing as perfect time besides God's time.
Right.
That's the only timing in your life that's going to be perfect.
I think a lot of times we look at time as an enemy instead of a friend.
That's very true.
That's true. That's good.
Because I don't want to be rapping at 50.
Yeah. A lot of times we look at him as an enemy.
Toby Mac killing it.
Toby Mac is the bomb too, though.
Dude's like,
he is.
Even at his age, he is still getting it.
But I just think sometimes people look at rappers as like, they look silly. You're 50 years old and you're rapping.
But we don't care what people think.
Well, it doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter how you sound.
Right.
It depends if you're anointed
as
or
long as
not.
you sound good.
Right.
You're right. That's about a bad thing.
That's
anointed thing for me. That's it.
Toby Mac's swag is still fly. Like, Toby Mac is still getting it.
I wouldn't dress like that, but I like Toby Mac.
And Toby Mac is the man.
Yeah.
I love Toby Mac.
No, but a lot of times I think that we forget, like, time can be our friend.
I can't, yeah. That's
And
true.
it's, sometimes there's things that needs to happen before we get to that goal or before we get to every dream we have.
Yeah, a lot of times I believe sometimes we have to wait because we need to grow spiritually before that happens.
Right. I mean, you said that earlier in that little time span of, of course, me praying about wanting to be in law enforcement, but it wasn't the time then.
Yeah.
So that's really actually important. I like the way Lydia just said that.
AJ, me and you had that conversation when we was talking on the phone one day. We was talking about camp decision.
Camp decision or camp
we were talking about camp decision. How I always wanted to finish that camp decision.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I was like, you know what? That wouldn't have been good for me. In my mind, it would have been, but it wouldn't have. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to do that.
You were waiting for Camp Fearless 2020, baby.
That's the first thing. The second thing,
it was necessary though. It was necessary,
right? But in the same sense, I wouldn't have been ready. Like that would have probably sent me like. My head would have been huge. Like I wasn't ready at the time. I thought I was.
Yeah.
But now that I know what I know now, and as you grow, you kind of look back and you be like, oh, that wasn't.
Well, now you actually rap pretty good. So.
And, I think that's. I think
Boy,
that's
he got
important
jazz for days. That thing go quick too, ain't it?
It does.
I thought I was quick with it, but man, all right, okay, I got it.
I think it's important though, as Lydia just said, that we understand a lot of times that if we're seeking something as far as dreams, then we got to understand that maybe we haven't developed what we needed to develop to walk into that just yet.
Yeah,
so we need to take time to allow God to take us through the process that we need to develop us, so we are able to walk into that and not misuse the thing that we think that we're ready for.
Right.
True. But don't let that discourage you from evangelizing.
No,
as young
because that's
people.
necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of my biggest regrets as a young person is I didn't really evangelize that much, and it was more of okay, yeah, come to church. You want to come to church? You come to church with me, or I'll invite you to camp or something. But it wasn't. I guess you'd say it wasn't important to me to get kids in my school. You know, because I went to quote unquote Christian school.
Right.
We know a lot of those kids are not really Christians.
No.
They say they are, but they're not living the life.
Yeah.
And so that's got to be a priority, especially as a young person. You won't regret it,
No.
and you'll grow so much more spiritually if that's a priority.
This is true. And you would actually be able to receive the wisdom and the knowledge because you have a desire to do so.
Well, and the more you do it, the better you get.
Right.
It's like
It-
preaching.
So it
Like,
comes
when I
with
first started
experience,
preaching, I was just like hunched over, staring at the notes, reading them word for word. And so I mean, the more you do it, the better you get, and the more you seek God, the greater the anointing is going to be on your life. And
It definitely builds confidence in you too.
yeah, it
Doing
does.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to be nervous to pray in front of people, and then, now I've done a couple chapels in school. I'm the football chaplain, and I got to do a Sunday morning, which I was still nervous about doing Sunday morning. I got big shoes to fill, even though they're little feet. I got big shoes to fill.
Sometimes, man, that Sunday morning crowd be like, I'm not gonna say intimidating, but it'd be like, oh man,
You better bring the word today.
I think it's just the
It's because they're
anticipation.
expectations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because-
the anticipation of like, what are we getting ready to hear, or what are we getting ready to receive?
That too.
was comparing me to Pastor Lisa and Pastor Dave. That
Right.
they gonna bring the word. So it's like, where's the pressure at?
like if I'm getting ready to perform for not camp, but for Fearless, like I'm ready, let's go. But when it's time for me to have to do it in the big church, I'm like, oh boy.
Well, it's because old people don't like rap.
That's one reason.
They don't know what you're saying.
That's
So
one
fine.
reason. That's why I try to do the slow stuff on Sundays.
I thought that was just a flow.
That's what. You see that? You see that? But
It comes real smooth though.
Yeah, I know.
But
But
as we're talking about this, we're talking about having, our dreams and the things that we're pursuing. Like this question just came to mind. Like, what if it's something that God says that He desires for you to do, but you aren't seeing those things coming together yet? I mean, I look at.
you better go with God if you know what I know.
I think about
Do what He want, you know what I want.
Well, yeah. I think the first question you got to ask yourself is this something that's good?
Right.
Because if it's not good, well, it's for sure not from God.
God,
But just
absolutely.
because it is good doesn't mean it's from God.
That's right.
Because the devil will do anything to get you off God's
Absolutely.
plan for your life.
That's definitely true.
And so that's a hard area, but that's where prayer comes in. That's where praying in the Holy Ghost comes in.
Definitely.
The best prayer you can pray, the mind and will of
Sure.
God. And so, but at the same time, if that's a promise God has given you, you gotta talk to your pastors first. I mean, that's a big thing. Talk to your pastors about it, because a lot of times when you talk to them, God will speak to you through other believers, and
That's
a lot
right.
of times
That's
when you
right.
speak to them, the Holy Spirit might give them a word for you. It might say right away, "Hey, that's not from God." That's
Right.
like my mom, Pastor Lisa talked about on Sunday. The guy came to her with a dream, and she doesn't usually have. Yeah, and right away God gave her the answer to that dream, and it was opposite of what that guy wanted to hear.
Right.
Because that guy thought just because it was good, it was from God, and this is what He wanted me to do in my life. But in reality, it wasn't. And that's not easy to hear all the time.
No.
Especially like when you like, oh man, I really want this in my life.
When you think you know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
that's not always easy
Like
to hear.
when I first started youth ministry, man, almost 4 years ago. I was still working at Target full time, and that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to throw boxes.
Bro.
I didn't
No,
want to do this.
I remember you told me, I think when we first started talking, you said that you wanted to be in ministry full time.
Yeah, 100%.
And you was like, sooner or later, it's going to
It's going to yeah, I mean, that's why I've been told them all those. I was there for 5 years telling them, hey, I ain't going to be here long. I ain't going to be here long. Which is, I was believing it, but it's confession too. But, but it had to be God's timing.
Right.
Like Pastor Lisa worked 25 years in as a nurse.
Right.
And she knew all along she was going to be called to ministry, but it was just a matter of God's timing.
Yeah.
So hearing Pastor Lisa say that, did you think that you would be called to being a youth pastor? Because at first, just like you said, you wanted to be in the NFL and you wanted to play football. But did you think that you would be? Did you think that you would be Caleb, the youth pastor? Did you think that was that a part of your plan? I didn't.
Well, I knew early on from prophecies and words spoken to me that I was going to be in ministry, but I didn't know what aspect of it.
Got you.
I know that, and then I knew probably maybe my freshman year in college that it was going to be youth ministry.
Right.
And then little fast forward a few years, and they asked me to be on like part time with them, and you know, it's a full-time job. Dealing with parents is a full-time job.
I know the feeling.
And yeah, I mean, it was frustrating because there was stuff that I wanted to do. The 5 years of the Target, you know, stuff that I wanted to do that I didn't have the time to do, so I had to rely on other people to help me out, which was super frustrating because I'm the type of guy that I want it done my way.
Oh, we know.
It's hard for me to.
We know.
It's hard for me to delegate. It's really hard for me to do.
As a youth leader, we know.
And, hey man, shut up.
We'll work on that because I'm good at delegating.
We trying to get him to delegate. He's hard at delegating.
You're replaceable.
I am.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You're called.
My hair is replaceable too.
No, that's a lie. You get the factory warranty back on that thing.
No, you can't. Unfortunately.
But it's. And then, you know, with everything that happened with breaking my hip and all that stuff, you know, I thought for sure, like, okay, maybe God can use this. And then, you know, I had the first surgery and I was supposed to go back to Target and then it broke again. And I was like, man, God, what are we going to do? You know, the devil wants to steal, kill, and destroy you. And I knew right away it wasn't from God.
Right.
Because I don't believe that. And, you know, we serve a good God and a loving God, and I wouldn't break my own kid's hip, so why would God break my hip?
Absolutely.
And so I knew it was the devil, and I was like, God, how are we going to use this to kick the devil back in the face and tell him to shut up? And so when that opportunity came to where I could be, okay, Target won't take me back. You know, the hip replacement, I couldn't do warehouse work anymore in the natural. And so when the opportunity came to work full-time in the church, you know, of course, I jumped right on board. But the door didn't open just because of my hip. Because our pastors aren't going to do anything off a whim or off of feelings. They're going to seek God for it and what God has planned. And so when that opened up, I was like, man, we're going to use this opportunity to the best of our ability. Because I was out almost 2 years. A year and a half from Target.
Right.
And so that whole time, I was coming to the church every day.
Right.
I didn't have to. I wasn't getting paid to do it, but I was like, I'm not going to sit my butt at home. I'm going to go and actually be useful. And so I would come here every day and do stuff, do ministry, do all that kind of stuff. And so I'm thankful that door opened finally, and I get to do this full time because
it's amazing.
There's already a lot of stuff we are doing now that I couldn't do before. And you know, we're about to take the youth leaders. We're about to go on a trip to California, man. Cali, baby, West Coast.
Yeah, baby.
And then, you know, I've only been to California in the airport. I've never even gone outside the airport, so I'm excited.
I've never been to California. I've always desired to go. Me and Jen have always talked about going to California. Well, one, because I'm a Laker fan, so I always wanted to see that.
Lord.
It's all right.
We had to go there.
I'm a Laker fan. And all of that, I was a huge fan of Saved by the Bell.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know what? I had to go.
Huh? Not going to that part.
Not going to that part.
Huh?
Remember eating cereal?
We're not, but it's still a fact that I'm in California.
Before school.
still a fact that I'm in California, so it's all
yeah, but we're going to you know, sit under the anointing of Mario Murillo and go to the tent revivals and bring back something for our kids, man.
Yeah.
Ignite something.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about that because it goes along with the dreams for the youth group and all that stuff.
I think an easier way to determine if something is from God or not is having your spirit full. And when your spirit is full,
huge, yeah.
when you are reading the word, when you're praying and you're fasting and praying and reading the word, your spirit becomes full. But when your spirit is starving, I know I think it's Psalms 27, I believe. It talks about how when your soul is starving, every bitter thing becomes sweet. So a lot of times what happens is that we'll see something that is bitter and we'll think, oh, this is sweet to us because we're starving and our spirit's starving because we're not filled on the word and we're not filled with God.
True. Which, I mean, that happens a lot as teenagers.
Yeah.
A lot of teenagers aren't really seeking God, and so every opportunity, this boy, that looks good. Like,
that sounds good.
That girl, yeah.
Right.
And then next thing you know, it's the worst decision you've made in your life. And,
Literally.
And you're
like a
falling
Sour
into
Patch
traps. Kid. Yeah, it's like a sour. That's what I call my kid.
How do you manage? How do you manage your level of being focused when chasing your dreams? You know, with, let's say for instance, Caleb, with you, I know you was dating Caleb during the midst of.
I was dating myself.
Caitlin, God dog, Caitlin, you was dating Caitlin in the middle of you playing football and transitioning to being a youth pastor. How do you maintain for somebody who's chasing that dream? How do you stay focused on that and staying focused to God?
Yeah,
I mean, because chasing your dream is not easy. I mean, everybody knows that, but it's not easy because there's a lot of things that you have to do. Like I said, again, you dating Caitlin.
I was
transitioning
5 hours away in school.
Right. You're transitioning, and then all of that, you was in the midst of having, I'm not gonna say tragedy, but you broke your hip twice.
Yeah.
And you had your diagnosis. So how did Caleb stay focused on, and I'm quite sure it wasn't hard. Or Lydia or AJ, how did you stay focused when
100% being at church?
All right, got you.
For sure. Like, a lot of times we stuff happens in our life and the first thing we do is run away from the presence of God. Like, why? Like, the biggest frustration with parents in youth group and youth ministry is they punish their kids from coming to youth. Oh, well, he's got 4 zeros, so he can't come to youth tonight. And that's like the biggest frustration because when you're in trouble, when you're in need, you need to run to the house of God because, that's where His presence is. That's where the anointing is. And that's where you'll get answers and whatever you're dealing with. And so, one coming to the church every day or spending time in prayer, working on my spiritual man and building that up. And that's one of the biggest things because when I was away at school, I got to a period where I didn't have a church that I liked. And so I quit going. Like, I don't like this church.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah. And so I got into that little period where, like, I wasn't really seeking God.
Right.
I wasn't really, like, figuring out what His plan for my life was or all this. And so when football ended because of injury and I got to come home, then I had my pastors on me and my family on me. Especially Pastor David. Every day. How much time you spend in the Word today? Or tell me what's your spiritual life lately? And it's I always had the answer like, it's not where I want to be. The cliche answer.
I think that was important though because she was challenging you in the moment to like, look, I got to do better because like.
That's how I thrive. Like, if you're not getting on to me or if you're not yelling at me, then I don't think you care. That's like my dad's his way of raising.
That's how we were raised.
It was different for Lydia and Josh, but he could say stuff to me that he couldn't say to them, and it's because you got to learn everybody's personalities. That's one of the hardest things as a parent is learning your kids' personalities and not breaking them, but directing them in the right direction. Because, God gave them that personality for a reason.
That's true.
And so when he would yell at me and call me names, and it was all out of love, but it was to motivate me and to push me. So when Pastor Datha rides my tail, it makes me better. And it makes me stronger in my walk with God. And it doesn't aggravate me. And, we're too quick to get aggravated with people pushing us. Like, we need to be pushed.
That's actually a blessing, though.
Yeah, it makes you better.
You're right, but I'm guilty of definitely getting aggravated. Because when I'm at work...
As long as you know that.
I'm definitely guilty. I don't mind telling you when I'm aggravated or wrong or something. I'll tell you in a minute. Right. Because when I'm at work, my manager's like that. You know what I mean? And, mind you, the guy been in the business for, 30 plus years. So I know he knows what he's talking about. I just don't like being nagged or aggravated. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kavon, you need to do this. Kavon, you need to do that. And I'm just like, all right, you're getting on my nerves.
Micromanage.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he's like, you're getting on my nerves. You know what I mean? But in the same sense, I mean, when I finally do what he asks, what he was telling me before, it'd be right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, I need to shut up. But still, I think it's just the aggravation part.
Well, that's
that
like
kind of
being raised by parents, man. They tell you all this stuff you don't want to hear, but man, you look back when you're older. You look back and you're like, man, they know what they're talking about.
This is true.
My dad used to say, "How many years have you lived?" Well, I've lived double that, or something like that.
I like that.
Yeah. They always say, "I brought you in this world. I can take you out."
I cannot see Kempy as my father. There's no way, bro, because his answers are so sarcastic. He stayed on jokes, and it's like, never mind.
He has a gift to it because it comes off just like that.
It does.
He doesn't even think about it, and it just comes off just like that.
Imagine Kempy being your father, AJ.
Nah. I couldn't.
You see what I'm saying? And bro, I grew up here, so I know what it's been like since I was a kid.
I don't know if I could actually take him as being my father because my father was really strict.
Yeah. Oh, that's strict.
No, he's strict.
Like he did not crack any jokes about anything. Like my dad, like when he looked at you, you knew what time it was. If you don't straighten up, you about to get jacked up.
Yeah.
Like, you better get it together.
Oh, I knew. My dad definitely made things fun.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah.
Lady, how do you remain focused? You know, because you're not here with your family. You know, you're away.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to what is Christ for
the Nations.
So how do Lydia stay?
Well, also, sometimes you're surrounded by flaky people.
Oh, all the time.
All the time. Yeah, all the time.
Absolutely.
Probably over 95% of my school.
And flaky people can do more damage to you than worldly people.
Absolutely.
Easily.
Absolutely.
So how do you stay focused from that? How do you stay grounded? How do you stay
from flaky
your foundation?
Because it's easy to get distracted and thrown off and deterred. It's very easy.
It is, and especially when you're off and you're by yourself and you don't have this atmosphere of like the church family and your family who is always like grandma always, is on you about what you're studying, what you're reading. It's very easy to get distracted. It's honestly, you have to set, I know for me, like setting mini goals for myself and in the process of my main goal is to set like the mini steps. That way when I achieve those goals, it builds a confidence in me because I achieved it.
That's good.
And then also like I get to look back and be like, wow, like I've come from this to this, and now let me go like, and then in that I don't become content with where I'm at because I know that I haven't reached my first goal, my top goal.
That's good.
So then I get to move my next little mini goal and then look like, wow, I've done 2 already. Like I got more to go. Let's keep going. So I think just setting like little goals to your big goal, and then never become content with where you are with God.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. That is important.
Because there's always more that you can know, always more that you can learn, and always like more for yourself, like where you can grow deeper and new ways to like show like the love of God and show who God is and sharing with other people. There's always more. And even
think about Pastor Datha's been in ministry for 40 years and she's still learning. Yeah.
Still learning.
Yeah, she's still even now she's always like, God, I want more and I want more.
Yeah.
I think also what actually helps staying focused is, again, understanding that it's something that you're driving towards. Mm-hmm. When you go before God concerning that, it's a matter of being certain that God is going to take you where you're going to end up regardless.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I say, okay, God, I'm here. I thank you for this dream that is on my heart. If it is something that you want for me to do, then reveal it to me. Make it known to me. And once you've left it there, just kind of go about the day just thanking him for the answer for that, or even just thanking him that it will come to fruition. And I think once you find yourself content in that, knowing that it is something that, God is leading you to, or something that you're expecting God to answer you for or from, you find yourself being more hopeful. Because when you're content to say, okay, God, if it is, then that's great. If it's not, then that's great too, because that means that there's something else that you
better
have.
For you too.
So it's like, I think you have to have that understanding to know the relationship of God or the person of God. So once you understand him and know who he is,
you can't know that without getting in the Word.
That's right. So once you actually get to that place, then I think things are a lot easier because you're a lot less susceptible to get frustrated or sidetracked when it comes to that. If that makes any sense.
The key is the question is, are you me-centered or God-centered?
Right.
Which that's a huge question.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
You know, a
right.
lot of times you say you're God-centered, but you check down really deep inside, you're like, I'm me-centered.
That's true. That's true.
It's true. And then I know a lot of ways, one of the ways Pastor Datha taught me, like if I'm trying to make a decision what I should do, is to pray one way and check my spirit, and then pray another way and check my spirit, and see how I feel about the other way, like one or the other way. Yeah. And I've used it, and it works.
That was some educate.
I'm gonna use that.
I like that.
I'm gonna start charging you for that
That's important.
I do have one question.
one. You always got a question.
I do. And I hear Pastor Datha say it a lot. When you chasing something, are you willing to pay the price? You know, a lot of times we want a lot of things.
I've heard her say that.
A lot of things, but are you willing to pay the price to get where you want to be with God, your dreams, whatever the situation is? Are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to eliminate your TV time or your video game time to get into the Word or work on your craft or whatever? You know, are you willing to pay the price for that? And you know, I see a lot of times, man, some people just aren't willing to do that. Going back to, you know, they don't want to work for what they're trying to achieve.
Right. So basically paying the price is the process that you have to go through to get to what it is that you desire.
But and then all that, paying the price is not a bad thing either.
No, it's
a
not.
lot of times people look at it as being a bad thing when you say pay the price.
Right.
But no, it's actually not.
No.
It builds you.
Right.
It builds you for that which you desire.
If you're listening, or just ask yourself, you know, these big dreams that you have, are you willing to pay the price for it?
You don't have to sacrifice something.
So
Are you willing to pay the price? Because I had to ask myself that. You know, am I willing to pay the price?
before I came to the Seed Church,
Right.
interesting. I was actually in a family church, and I had been praying for the Lord to do some new things in my life, and for Him to just change some things. But I was expecting things to change where I was,
Right.
but instead, He said that it was time for me to move on. And of course, it was the hardest thing for me to do because here I am. I'm like in my family church. I'm like leading worship. I'm helping out everywhere I could possibly in the church. And of course, when he said that to me, I was like, okay, like this is going to be hard because now I have to go to the person that I highly respect and say, this is something that God is leading me to do. And with the possibility of them like looking at me like this boy has no clue what he's talking about. Like, why would the Lord actually call you to leave where you have all this responsibility to go somewhere where you don't know nobody?
Right.
Yeah.
And I said that to say this, because of my praying for the Lord to do something new in my life and for Him to either change some things, because I was hungry for something. I was hungry for more, and I didn't feel like I was actually receiving what I needed to. And then when He said that to me, as far as me leaving, that price to actually pay, like that was really challenging. Really challenging. I remember coming to talk to Pastor Lisa.
How'd you get here?
Actually, I
How did you find out about the Seed Church?
So
How did you find out?
Sharon Durant.
Yeah.
When I left my first agency full time and I went to work in family business, I went to a place where we actually do business at, and then Sharon Durant actually works in the office of that particular place. So I actually had an opportunity to meet her, and going in there so much, she was like, hey, we're having something at church. You should actually come. So I came, and there was a Wednesday night revival that was actually going on. I don't remember the guy who was actually speaking that time. And I came that Wednesday night, and I remember seeing like Pastor Datha's heart for God and like how she just pours out her heart.
Yeah,
right.
for real.
And I'm just like, see, that's what I need that in my life.
Right.
And then coming from, I'm going to kind of sum this up because I don't want to take too much time. Coming to the life course, like I wasn't even a member of the church then when I was taking the life course. Like I was coming to the life course because she was like, hey, we're starting this class. Maybe you would actually want to actually take the class. And I was like, well, I don't know if, Pastor Lisa would be okay with that. And she was like, well, I'll ask her and find out. So she ended up asking Pastor Lisa if it was cool for me to take the life class. And Pastor Lisa was like, sure, tell him he can come on and take the life class. So I ended up taking the life class. Through the life class, I remember on the Freedom Retreat day that we had.
Yes,
so, you go up and you get prayed for these different subjects or sections or whatever. So I go to Pastor Brian. And Pastor Brian's praying for me. And after he finished praying for me, he was like, hey, AJ, did something happen to you? And here I am looking, I'm like, okay, God, now you tell it all my little business. I'm like, Lord, you tell it all my business. So, and then I had an opportunity to kind of share with him. And from that point, when the Lord told me that that's what he wanted me to do, he had already laid the foundation. Yeah. So when he instructed me to do that, it was easy for me to make the decision, but it wasn't easy for me to tell my family church that this is what was actually going to happen and this is what I was actually doing. So that actually, that was like one of the hardest things to do. So the price that I had to pay to actually do that transition, that was really hard.
Jeez.
That was really hard.
So we talked about, you know, when you're chasing your dreams, the perfect timing's a myth. We talked about staying focused,
building confidence,
taking action to that dream. We talked about staying focused. We talked about obstacles. We'll have obstacles in our life. They'll appear. No matter who you are, you're going to have some kind of obstacle to get to your dream. And a lot of times, you know, it's the devil throwing stuff at you because you're more dangerous when you're living out God's plan for your life. And we talked about, you know, there's no fast way to it, which could be very disturbing and not disturbing, but discouraging. We just gotta. There comes to a point where you gotta be like, God, I'm trusting you.
Right.
Yeah.
Not like it's in your hands, but as in like I'm gonna do my time.
You gotta be sold out.
Spending with you. I'm gonna be praying. I'm gonna be believing you for this, and I'm trusting that you're gonna lead me in the right direction, which He 100% will do every time.
Yeah. I think another part of being successful is having an attitude of gratitude and thanksgiving.
That's huge.
And
definitely.
I know
don't think that nobody owes you anything. Either.
No. I think it's even been scientifically proven like how much gratitude does for you. It reduces like depression. It helps you sleep better. Like having that attitude of gratitude and thankfulness for where you've come from, just your everyday waking up that morning and stuff like that builds a deeper relationship with God, and it's important into being successful. It helps you.
If you don't have gratitude towards people around you, you definitely don't have gratitude towards God.
No,
and He's done more for you than anybody could.
This is true.
So the question is, what would you do if you knew that you wouldn't fail? What dream would you go after? You know what I mean? If you think about that for real, like if you're listening, just think about that for right now, because you know sometimes. Fear of failure stops us from even pursuing that dream. Like
this is true.
Or being defeated is what holds us back from chasing that dream and ultimately achieving that dream, especially that dream that God's put on your heart.
Right.
So the fear of failure, that's the devil. You know, Fear is the complete opposite of faith.
That's right.
And that's why our youth group's called Fearless. Like we want a generation that's fearless for the things of God.
Right.
And, you know, that we use that saying that fear is false evidence appearing real. So the devil puts fear into your life.
That's right.
And it could be fear of all kind of stuff, but, you know, fear that nobody will love you anymore, fear that you'll never achieve it, fear that you'll be a failure
rejection.
Like other people. Yeah, and so rejection. And so we got to overcome that.
That's right.
And you do that by faith, getting to the Word of God and all this stuff. And you think about like the when the Israelites left Egypt, what they have? They had a promise from God, right? They had a promise of that God gave them the promised land, the promise of the land, and you know it was good, it was beautiful, it was land of milk and honey,
right?
But He says you have to fight for it. I've given you this promise, I've given you this dream, but you have to fight for it.
Yeah.
And they weren't they were guaranteed victory.
Right.
And that's the hardest thing as Christians. A lot of people aren't taught this, or a lot of people don't believe it. Is when you're with God, you're guaranteed victory.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed victory in your life. And it doesn't mean there'll be moments where it looks like failure, because when Jesus died on the cross, to the whole world it looked like failure, right?
Right.
But He was already guaranteed victory. 3 days later, kicked the devil's butt, raised from the grave. And so, you know, when they sent the 12 spies out, a lot of people have heard the story. You know, 10 of them came back and they talked about how great the land was and all that, but then they talked about their fear.
Right.
Fear of the people there, the fear of what's going on. You know, the only 2 disciples that were great was me, Caleb, and my brother Josh. No, but Josh and Caleb were the only ones. And so, because of their fear, they didn't get to inherit the promise. 40 years went by. because of their fear. But the two that did not fear, the two that trusted God,
Right.
the two that knew that they were guaranteed victory, got to do that.
Right.
They got to inherit that,
Yeah.
and they got to be used by God in mighty ways. And so we can't let fear stop us from achieving what God has called, because we're called to victory.
Amen.
Right.
We're more than a conqueror. You know all the sayings, but it's so true.
Head
And
and not the tail.
what?
Head and not the tail.
Yeah. So what scripture is it? Joshua 2, he talks about, the Lord has given you the land, but he says he's giving you all the land, but the people are terrified of you. Mm-hmm. And he's saying that in Joshua, so they're about to go into the promised land.
Right.
So the people are terrified of them. Why are they terrified of them? Because they knew that they see that they're with God, that God is for them.
Yeah.
They went through Jericho and they knocked down the walls with a mighty shout. Like, all this stuff's happening. And so when you're with God, the enemy, the devil, they're scared.
Yeah.
Because you're walking in God's plan for your life. You're walking in these things that God has called you to. And there's nothing scarier to the devil than a person walking in their calling, especially a young person knowing their identity in Christ and walking in their calling. It scares the devil.
Yeah.
It really does. And that's what happens in Joshua. They saw these people coming, and the devil, the enemy, got scared because they're walking with God, and they're walking into their destiny, and they're walking into their calling. And so that's exactly what we need to do. Right. We need to walk with a confidence of, hey, man, I know who my God is. Right. I know that I'm going to be victorious in this.
Right.
I know no matter what the devil throws at me, no matter what storm is coming my way, I can overcome it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We can get through it.
Right.
And I think a big part of that is knowing that the storm's not from God.
No.
We got to know that.
But talking about victory, he promised us victory through that storm. So, but again, you have to stand on that. You have to stand on what he's saying, especially when you chasing your dreams. You have to stand on what he says and not what the world
has. You have to quit listening to fear and listen to God.
Proverbs 3:5, trust the Lord God with all your heart and not lean on your understandings.
Yeah. I mean, he'll carry you through everything.
That's right.
And, a lot of times in the Old Testament, they believe God did all these things to them, but they didn't have a revelation of who the devil was.
That's right.
And then in the New Testament, it always talks about the enemy and what the enemy's doing. Mm-hmm. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come to give you what?
Life.
And give it to you more abundantly.
That's right.
That sounds like victory to me.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it you? And
it's to me.
And when you're serving God, like even if you die, but Jesus is your Lord and Savior,
that's right.
The devil doesn't win.
Nope. Still getting the pearly gates.
Nope.
Because you ain't in hell.
Still going through the pearly gates.
Nope.
So, if you're listening, man, it's time for you to start. Maybe you quit dreaming.
Pick it back up.
Maybe you've given up on your dreams. It's time for you to pick that up, and it's time for you to tell the devil to shut up and to kick that fear in the face.
That's right.
And say, God, man, if this, let's do it. Let's get this. God, I want your plan for my life. God, I want your purpose for my life, because there's no greater feeling, no greater satisfactory, no greater happiness or joy or whatever when you're following in God's plan for your life.
Right.
Even if you're in the process.
Right.
If you're in the right process, you're gonna have joy.
Right.
You're gonna have peace in your life. And peace is huge. There's a lot of people on the streets and a lot of teenagers that don't have peace, and they're aggravated and they're frustrated and they're even killing themselves because there's no joy and there's no peace in their life. And the world will never give you that.
Holding on to all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Look what it does to you when you holding all that stuff from in you. You know what I mean? And we talked about this last week. Imagine how we felt when we was walking around holding all that stuff in because we couldn't really express it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You just walk around with all this mess in you. But when you get that freedom from God in there, it's like the best thing ever. Because now you're walking around like, okay, I didn't need to do all that. I didn't need to hold all that in there. You know what I'm saying?
To piggyback off of what Caleb was just saying, I think that's a big thing with people losing hope in their dreams, because a lot of people just accept life as just working and going to work every day, and they're not looking for nothing more.
True.
And if you're there, God always has more for you.
Yeah.
If you're looking for it, it's there. He says, knock and the door will be open, and asking you shall receive. But I think a lot of people they get on that level, and like you said, the fear or the mindset of saying, I can't achieve that and I can't accomplish that. But no, you can't accomplish it, and no, you can't achieve it without God. You can't do anything.
But with God,
Yeah, you can do all
possible.
things. That's right.
That brings me back to Target, man. One of my biggest frustrations, and the reason the atmosphere there was so negative, is because you had a bunch of 35 to 40-year-old people working in the warehouse. And you know why they never got out of the warehouse? Because they were scared that they couldn't find a job that would pay as much. And they were scared. And there's people there that had dreams of doing stuff, of owning their own business and all this stuff, but they would never step out of that because they had a fear of failure.
Right.
Talking about what you just said, I'm tired of hearing that cliche, these the cards I was dealt.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all don't hear that?
But
Like,
you know, it's funny you say that, because if those were the cards you dealt, that means you accepted them as your own.
absolutely. Like,
So,
that drives me crazy. Like, just because they won't get out of that box of being comfortable where they're at, they won't.
I'm content.
Right. They become content, and all that. They just look at it as, these are the cards I was dealt. This the life I'm supposed to live. No.
It's not true.
It's
Read
not
your
true.
Bible.
It's not true. It's not
God
true,
has so
man.
much for you.
So much more, man.
This the hand I was dealt.
Nah.
Huh? You better pray. Ask God to shuffle them. For real, man. Like, it drives me crazy, man. You like, no, that's not right, man.
Well, that's like you getting dealt your hip and your diagnosis, but you're not accepting those cards that they gave to you.
No,
Heck no.
man. Like,
I'm going to be running around with my kid.
absolutely.
Heck no. I mean, of course, there's moments where the devil tested my faith and stuff. Because, I mean, I didn't walk
And you
for 20 weeks.
I'm quite sure you had doubt
in a
too.
wheelchair. I mean, like, it was a long time. It was a long process. I had a new baby at home. I was in a wheelchair for 20 weeks. I was on double crutches for another 6 weeks, one crutch for 6 weeks, a cane for 6 weeks, all while baby at home. And it's so easily, you can so easily let the devil discourage you.
Yes.
Like, oh man, I'm never going to be able to walk normal again. Or like all these thoughts begin to come into your head. And that's why you have to tell the devil to shut up. And that's one of the things, I don't know. I just thought about this. Maybe that's when I started. Me telling the devil to shut up 2 years ago. Maybe that's when it started, because all these things are creeping in your head, and you're like, man, shut up, devil. I'm gonna be running with my kid. Like, shut up, devil.
Absolutely.
You're not gonna keep me down.
Amen.
And so, guys, tell the devil shut up.
Yeah.
But I'm quite sure Caleb, during that time, looking at your human side, doubt was creeping in. Fear.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the devil.
You know what I'm saying? I'm quite sure all that kicked in, but go ahead.
To say this, even though again we're walking this walk, that's not to say that we're not going to be feeling some sort of doubt or feeling like it's not going to happen.
Anymore.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So, and the thing is, once you can recognize that, like, look, this is here, but this is not where I'm going to stay. You know what I'm saying? I'm moving through this.
That was my confession. That was my prayer, all that stuff. And, it all comes down to where your foundation is.
Yeah.
That's right.
The whole parable about building the house on the sand, building the house on the rock.
That's right.
I built before that happened. Don't wait till disaster or tragedy happens to start building your foundation.
Yeah.
Build it now as teenagers. Go ahead and build it now, because that's what helped me when that whole thing came down. Man, my foundation was strong. Man, everything I was taught was coming out of my mouth. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
That's right.
So what was in my spirit, man, it was coming out, and I wasn't accepting it.
No.
I don't care what the doctor tells me. I don't care. I'm going to do everything he asked me to do.
Right.
And I'm going to take the medicine he wants me to take. But I'm going to make sure I fill it with God's medicine, the Word of God.
Right.
It says reading the Word is healing to your flesh.
That's right.
Right.
And so that's what I chose to. Of course, I'm going to do the right things and do what the doctor says, but that's not where my faith is. My faith's not in man, it's in God.
A lot of times people think just because you say you serve God and that, you're a Christian, that you're immune to what goes on. It's not true, man.
No.
Like, all things are going to happen.
Well, and the word says that we as his righteous ones, we have to fight the good fight of faith.
Absolutely.
And he wouldn't say fight the good fight of faith if he did not mean that. Because it's
You're going to throw some
You're going to have to fight. If you're listening,
challenge,
you
man.
are going to have to fight.
That's right.
But
That's right.
hey man, put your dukes up. Let's see what you got.
You gotta do it, man.
That's what it is. You're going to have to fight. You are not immune.
And it's nothing like achieving that challenge and coming out on the other side, and you're looking back at it, be like, you know what, like
I'm coming out better than I went in.
Right. Like,
Absolutely.
that was tough, but look where I'm at now.
Look where you're at now.
It's like I never even went
In your
through
face,
that.
devil.
Yeah, it's amazing. God is good.
Well, man, this podcast. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying talking with
Absolutely.
you guys and having guests on. And
Yes,
This is
sir.
good.
I mean, it's week 4. Like it's only the beginning, and
Yeah.
And,
Only the beginning.
and it's nothing been positive feedback and stuff, and it can't be nothing but positive when it's
Nothing.
God ordained.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so guys, man, never miss the opportunity to tell the devil to shut up.
Shut it up.
Shut up.
And pay the price. Pay the price.
Shut up, devil. Love you guys.
Yes, sir.